My Hero Academia is a shonen manga, then turned anime, written by Kohei Horikoshi in 2015. The official manga has over 430 chapters, spanning across 42 volumes. There are spin-offs, movies, specials, you get the idea. The story follows a quirkless boy named Izuku Midoriya living in a world full of superhumans, and trying to navigate the world while pursuing his dream of becoming like his idol, All Might. I could yap about this series for hours, and now that I think about it, that's more or less what I'm gonna do. Except all of this is purely going to be based off of seasons 1 through 7 and the 4 movies, as season 8 is not yet out, and I don't own all the manga and don't want to get spoilers. Without further ado, here's to how My Hero Academia satisfies the 4 functions of myth, as well as how it demonstrates the hero's journey. My Hero Academia starts off by explaining the world that they're in. Contrary to most superhero movies, being powerless is not the norm. In the opening, we're told that the first case of a superhuman was in China, with the glowing baby. From then on, superhumans started appearing everywhere, with 80% of the population having a meta ability by the time the story takes place. Superhuman abilities were then called quirks by society, the term being coined by the government to ease tensions. Actually, fun fact, the word quirk in the original Japanese dub is
個性
more accurately translates to individuality or personality. Therefore, quirks are one's individuality in the series.
I cannot stop twinkling.
Not just a power. As you can see, we're not given much of theistic mythology, but we get an explanation as to how meta abilities came to be. Though we're never really given an answer as to why quirks manifested in the first place. I personally believe that this is on purpose, as the glowing baby occurrence is referenced in both the show and the movies. Because we never get a definitive answer as to why the glowing baby came to be, it's ultimately left up to interpretation by both fans and the characters themselves. The search for why quirks appeared and their impact made way for characters in the show to come up with theories, religious and scientific. Although there's no mentions about divine entities or higher powers in the series, I would personally categorize the glowing baby and its impact as cosmological, maybe even falling a little bit into the mystical category. The glowing baby and the sudden appearance of quirks was the beginning of a new world transitioning into a new superhuman world. This follows the emergence motif often found in creation myths. Additionally, the wonder it promotes fits into the mystical category. The mystical category of myth includes symbolism that doesn't always adhere to objective reality. This fits the symbolism between quirks and individuality, as stated earlier. The quirks tend to match the user's personality. It can be said that their quirk influences the way that they act and the way that they experience the world. A few examples would be Bakugo's fiery personality, All Might being extremely strong, Todoroki being cold and reserved, Kirishima being strong and manly, and so on. This also brings us back to religious and scientific theories about quirks, because it follows the standard of the mystic function creating an open mind. Quirks inevitably had a societal impact. As mentioned earlier, metahumans were discriminated against. But as the quirk-having population became the majority, the status quo shifted. Now, there had to be rules and regulations for quirks. Here's where it gets a little muddy, because the legality of quirks seems to rely on context. Using your quirk within the house is okay, but using quirks in public, when someone could get hurt, regardless of intention, can get you into legal trouble. Heroes are allowed to use their quirks out in public, but only with a license. In order to obtain a license, you have to complete a major competitive exam. This is one of the main ideas of Season 3. Given these examples, we can conclude that there's a legal aspect to quirks. It depends on intent, place, permission, and morality. Another part of the sociological function is cultural and societal structure. Although these don't all teach you how to act morally good, these do involve ethics and the status quo. Katsuki Bakugo is not the antagonist of My Hero Academia. He's not even an anti-hero. He's Izuku's rival.
Their relationship paints a perfect picture of superhuman society. Despite being the same age, from the same neighborhood, and both being intelligent, they experience the world incredibly differently. They're opposites beyond just their personality. Katsuki is gifted, having a, quite literally, flashy quirk, good grades, is upper middle class, and everybody praises him for everything. Izuku is nothing. He is quirkless, deemed less fortunate, less than, mocked, bullied, looked down upon, and unfairly treated by almost everyone. Even dating back to when they were kids, Katsuki had deemed Izuku as incapable and defenseless, which is where the name Deku stems from. Being quirkless is deemed as a disability, yet there are no protections for quirkless people or resources for them to live fairly. Izuku's bullying and mockery was obvious, but nobody intervened to protect him. Katsuki believes he is better than everybody else, which is the exact reason he humiliates Izuku so much. Although it doesn't excuse his bullying, one could interpret this as a byproduct of this societal hierarchy produced by quirk society. They're not even the only examples. Monoma has an inferiority complex. Kirishima hated his quirk due to it not being flashy enough. And in a more extreme case, Endeavor had an illegal quirk marriage with the purpose of his kid surpassing All Might. None of these are good things, but the standard was formed because of quirks. I can't fully discuss this topic because of time purposes, but quirkless individuals aren't the only ones who face discrimination. Take cases like Mezo Shoji, Shinso, and Toga Himiko. People with a mutant-type quirk, or mutants, were persecuted for looking different, and still deal with the prejudice and hate crimes. The UA exam was not made with the consideration for quirks like Shinso's, which are not offense types, which is why he was initially rejected from UA. People also assumed his quirk could only be used for evil, which he heard all throughout his life. As for Toga Himiko, her quirk has drawbacks, and she's deemed a freak and a cursed child due to what her quirk entails and is disowned. She was misunderstood, and there were no resources at the time to help her. They can't choose what quirk they end up with, so they end up suffering because of factors they can't control. Referencing the linguistics behind the original word,
個性
they face societal consequences for their individuality. The final function is psychological. This doesn't involve the entire world, and there's not much comfort to be given, but MHI does include rites of passage. This is best shown with One for All, because its purpose was to end all for one. The passage of One for All in itself is... Oh wait, I said it. It's a rite of passage. One had to prove themselves worthy of it and go through trials to inherit it. Defeating All for One is the reason why it gets passed, so the new holder of One for All inherits that challenge with it. Alright, I've yapped enough about the world building in this show. It's been a while since we've talked about our main character, Deku. We already established that 80% of the global population has a quirk, making quirkless people the minority. Per the status quo, it works against people without quirks. Being quirkless is considered a disability, and something to be looked down upon. Despite having no formal power hierarchy system, it's obvious that your quirk and how strong you are determines how you're treated. This is shown in hero rankings, social treatment, and so much more. Izuku, also called Deku, was bullied for this. Heck, the name Deku itself, Defenseless Izuku, is a mean term before he makes it his hero name. Although controversial, Bakugo and Deku's relationship from childhood to adolescence is a perfect example of the society they live in. TLDR, Izuku asks All Might if he can be the next #1 hero like him, and All Might says, "Ain't no way, you delusional kid, you're gonna get yourself killed," and crushes his dreams. Then BAM! Crowds of people surrounding a sewer monster about to kill Bakugo. Izuku is better than all of us, because instead of preying on his bully's downfall, he literally runs in without thinking and tries to free him, despite being violated and nearly killed by the same monster earlier. This could end terribly for anybody with a quirk. I mean, Bakugo has a powerful explosion quirk and still couldn't fight off that villain. Several heroes were around and could barely do anything. But that didn't stop Izuku from running to help someone who he considers a friend, even though they treat him like absolute garbage. This is Izuku's first heroic moment, but there are several others like it. All Might ends up saving the day as always, like the plot armor he is, at least in season 1, and runs after Izuku. By this point, it's been revealed that All Might's power is deteriorating, and he can no longer keep up the way he used to. He commends and praises Izuku for his bravery, feeling moved and inspired by his actions. He then tells Izuku he can be a hero and becomes a mentor for him. He challenges Izuku and trains him over the course of 8 months with the goal of preparing his body for the inheritance of One for All and getting into UA. I would consider Izuku's departure as the UA entrance exam. The reason I chose this specific event is because it's his first actual step at becoming a hero. By this time, he can't outdo himself because of the risk that comes with One for All, and he just inherited it. On top of everything, he's not as strong as others, doesn't know how to use One for All, and where others have been training for this exam for years, Izuku has only been training for a few months. Despite all this, he doesn't back down and is determined to get into UA. The goal is to earn as many points as possible by defeating bots within a certain time limit. He risks himself, his life, and his future for a stranger, Ochako. All the odds are against him, yet he still prioritizes other people over himself. I know I just covered the UA entrance exam, which can technically count as a test. However, when looking at the criteria for this part of the hero's journey, it reminds me of smaller victories often forgotten about. For example, the villain versus hero battle Deku and Ochako had against Bakugo and Ida, or even things like the baseball throw test, the UA Sports Festival, learning through Gran Torino, changing his fight style after learning the potential consequences of his recklessness, etc. As for enemies, there are a few. Bakugo, Shigaraki, Stain, Muscle Man, Overhaul, and All for One. Although Deku doesn't fight All for One himself, by season 7, Shigaraki and All for One are one and the same vessel. I think Shigaraki's reveal in season 2 during the USJ arc fits this category best. At this point in the series, Shigaraki is immature. He has no real goal or intention. Class 1A is on a field trip, but it gets interrupted when an actual villain alert comes in. They're supposed to wait for pro heroes to arrive, but they end up taking matters into their own hands. This helps Izuku and the rest of the class grow as heroes, becoming more independent and learning how to stay calm and be smart during a crisis. Although Shigaraki was revealed as early as season 2, he didn't pose an extreme threat compared to Stain or Overhaul. However, as Izuku is getting stronger and learning more about being a hero, Shigaraki is also growing as a suitable opponent. Using this definition of the hero's journey, I immediately think of Season 6 MHA. The season starts off with our heroes fighting a war with the Paranormal Liberation Front, and the heroes suffer major losses. Some quit, some lose their lives, and there's a lot of sacrifice that takes place. Mirko loses limbs. Eraserhead cuts off his leg. He also loses an eye, but that's less sacrifice and more so impact. And Midnight loses her life. More specific to Deku, he not only unlocks new quirks as part of One for All, but also fights face to face with Shigaraki's new form. A form with transplanted quirks and All for One's influence. This arc feels like a huge loss for the heroes, not only because of the amount of death and destruction, but also because it puts trust in heroes at an all-time low. All of these factors lead to Deku losing himself in self-sacrifice. This is when we get the Vigilante Deku arc. I said this earlier, but I don't have the full manga, and the series isn't finished. So instead of writing an overall treasure or reward, I'll use the last example I just mentioned from the war arc. While fighting Shigaraki, Izuku was using One for All at 100%, which led to him unlocking the 7th quirk in One for All, Float. I'll use the end of the Overhaul arc for this. During Season 4, Deku has this huge fight with Overhaul. Deku wanted to save Eri from the beginning, and after defeating Overhaul, he got to save Eri and prove himself to Sir Night-Eye, literally changing fate. Deku's Vigilante arc marks a shift in Deku's thinking. He takes self-sacrifice in being a hero to a toxic level. It becomes him neglecting his own care. He believes he should do it all himself because power is endangering those in shelters and safe zones, and it's also putting everybody else around him at risk. He also knows that he's the only one who can take down Shigaraki because he's the only one of One for All, made to directly fight against All for One. He is not the same. Well, this sucks. I can't prove this one because I don't know how My Hero ends. Even going back into smaller arcs, they don't necessarily end all problems with quirk society. But if I absolutely had to mention the hero changing the world into a better place, I'd mention Gentle Criminal, who reformed because of Deku, and tried again to pursue heroism after his encounter with him. This is only possible because Deku finds the good in people, and believes in helping them out. And that concludes our video. This is how My Hero Academia satisfies the 4 functions of mythology and the hero's journey. Thank you for watching. If you've stuck around this long, I honestly commend you. I yap a lot. This video has taken several days and countless hours of editing. All of this was for my mythology final, so this is technically my final exam. As stressful as it was, I really enjoyed making this. And hey, I won't complain about having to rewatch My Hero Academia for class. I'm aware there's some issues with the editing, and the audio isn't the best. I really need a mic. I also got sick halfway through recording this. That's why you'll see some inconsistencies here and there throughout the recording. If there are things that got repeated in the video, it's because I did not have enough time to fix it before the last day of Myth. But overall, thank you for watching, have a plus ultra day, and I'm out.
It is here!